you never know when your time's up. Like, so spend every moment of your time with something you love. Just
Mm.
find what you love and do it. Like, I've found so many kids that are just like, I don't like school. I'm like, dude, find something that you can do after school that you just love, even if it's a sport. Just like, because you never know. Like, I could go to school tomorrow, be driving, and boom, car hits me, I'm gone. Like, you never know.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that has built several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And if you ever need help, just go to strategymeeting.com and are always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Josh Baker. And Josh, he is taking he almost was the youngest person on the podcast, but he's actually the second. So if you were to go back quite a few episodes, I think it's like episode 30 or 40, somewhere in that range, we had someone that I think was a freshman in high school that was doing quantum computing. So he doesn't quite get the title as youngest guest on the podcast, but almost. But Josh is still in high school, and he had a kind of an entrepreneurial bent since he was at a young age or a younger age. I'll still say high school's a young age, but and then he had some. It started out everything from he had a neighborhood where they had the classic lemonade stand, and they did that to buy some candy. Then they did different. They built a shed and sold candy, and then they had a couple other things that they started to get going. Friends went off, did other things, including religious missions, and then and he also was doing a few other things, and then it brings him to today, where he is now selling smaller miniature Christmas trees and doing that as a business that's getting started and just launched, I think, last or in beginning of November. So with that, and is that as much as an introduction? Welcome on the podcast, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Devin. Um,
So I gave kind of a brief introduction, kind of walk people through a quick version of your journey, but let's dive in, talk a little bit more about your journey. So take us back to your younger years, even though I say you're still in your younger years, when you started out as an entrepreneur at a young age and how you did your lemonade stand and candy stand and everything else.
yeah, so it was from a young age. I want to say I was 5 when I first
Hmm.
started, like kindergarten. Went to the store with my friends one time, and we asked my mom, we're like, hey, do you think we can like get some candy? She's like, no, I don't have enough money for it. Classic response. Like,
Hmm.
well, how do we get money? And she's like, well, figure it out. So we're sitting there. It's like I don't even remember how the idea came to us. We're like, let's open a lemonade stand. So next thing you know, we're sitting on the road. We have Kool-Aid 25 cents Kool-Aid packets, and like made our own lemonade. Next thing you know, we're on the side of the road and like lemonade 25 cents, and we made pretty good money doing that. Got to buy our candy, and then as the years went on, like you said, we always just kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit in us since then.
Mm.
And
So I think the next thing, so you did first of all, I never did the problem with me. I always wanted to do that growing up, but we lived kind of far away, but it was kind of on farmland. So the nearest road was more like a highway. And so nobody could ever stop or pull over, and we didn't have enough place to put it. So I never actually did that. So does a lemonade stand, do they work fairly well? Or do you as a kid, did you raise a lot of money for it?
oh yeah, we were definitely, for 5-year-olds, we were the what's the word, richest kids on the blocks. Like, we were making more than some of the fourth graders. Like, oh, we're doing great. But yeah, we live in a double cul-de-sac, so we could just go out, and then we have two
Hmm.
main roads on the side. So like there was a lot of traffic going in between our neighborhoods, so we had an ideal location. So that was
Awesome.
perfect.
Well,
But
awesome. So you did the lemonade stand, 5 years old, got as much candy as you could probably buy, or probably handle, and probably more than your parents ever wanted you to have. And so then you did that. Now the next, I think, a little entrepreneur that you mentioned was you built an actual shed or a shack that you sold candy out of. Is that right?
yeah, so after we made some money, we did little side things like snow removal and stuff, and then kind of got bored of that. Like, that was hard labor. Like, man, there's got to be a better way. And we had this money, and we bought all the trading cards, candy we could handle. What to do with all this extra money? I don't think any kids built a shed, so we built ourselves a shed. And next thing you know, we're like, well, now we have our shed and stuff. And we had a neighbor help us out. Like, one of his dads like helped us build the shed, and it was a great learning experience as well. And built it. We're like, now what do we do with this? Like, it's nice, we can hang out in it, but we're sitting there like, let's sell some candy out of it. Like, we made good money with the lamp. Now we have an actual place, and when it's raining, we can still sell out of this. Like, this is great. And we're like, man, let's do that. And so we went to the store, we bought candy, soda, treats like that. And the joke is, because there's three of us, the joke is that one was the marketer, because the other one he hated going door to door with signs. Just we'd be plastering papers. Were like, and we called it Boss Code because we're like, co would stand for cooperation. Like, we cooperated and we were all the bosses. So it's kind of how we came up with it. And so we're like, Boss Co's opening, and slamming it. The other one's like, I'm not doing that. Like, that's too much walking for me. Like, oh, whatever. But he was the salesman by far. Like, he would be like, look, this is a little soda, $1 or whatever. You can buy this 2-liter for $5. That's more than 5 little sodas right here. Like, I mean, less money. And they're like, oh yeah, we were making way more off those 2 liters. He was just conning. I was like, oh my gosh, like, and I was kind of the guy that was like, let's buy candy in bulk. Like, we can sell it cheaper. Like, I started to recognize opportunities where we could, hey, let's capitalize on this. Like, more people are liking this. Let's stop buying or like hot chocolate, or like, that's not doing anything. I was more of the more manager type of, so to speak, but they were the ones that had most of the hard work.
So how long did you do your candy shack, or how long did you guys do that for a business?
I want to say it was around 2 to 3 years. Like, it was a great thing. Like, we also recognized, like, let's make it limited edition too. Like, let's only be open on Friday, so people are excited coming into. Like, it was just a blast. Like, then we got to our teenage years, and who knows what we did, but
So you did that as a kid, and I think that's cool. I always encourage my kids, and some of the businesses I have, I hire my kids to come and clean the office, not because they do an amazing job, but because it kind of gives them that same. Now you would associate, if I want to earn something or I need money, go out and earn it. Don't just go to your parents and ask for the money, but actually figure out a way to generate that income. So I think that's awesome that you did the lemonade stand, took it to the next level, and did the candy shop. And I said, I think that you mentioned, you kind of did things off and on with businesses with friends for a period of time, and then as your friends are now gone out and served religious missions, you're kind of stuck with, you didn't want to work for minimum wage, you didn't want to work for someone else, and so you're trying to kind of figure out what to do. So kind of maybe help us understand, what did you do as you were trying to figure out the next evolution of your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, like you said, I didn't want to get a minimum wage, so I went and got a job, because like before those 2 friends, they were in high school, they graduated last year, so we had a job, and man, it sucked. Like, I can't think of any other way to put it. Like, we're just like, man, this is not fun. Minimum wage, it was awful. And I ended up being the last one to join and the first one to quit. Like, I was like, guys, I don't know what you're thinking. And eventually those guys leave or whatever, and then the pandemic hit, of course, and now I have a lot of spare time, and I'm like, well, I don't really know what to do. Like, I feel like I can do something more productive, because one thing I hate, like, my biggest pet peeve is just sitting there. Like, I hate just being there, like, in a classroom setting too. Just hate sitting there, like, absorbing, not to say useless, but some of it's useless information. It's just like, it bugs me to death. So I get going or whatever, and there's this one class I took. It was an internship class. My mom has a guy, he started his own business, entrepreneur, and he highly successful and stuff, and she's like, you should just do an internship with him. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. Like, I want to I want to be an entrepreneur. I knew about that point, like, I had more fun doing that, but I just didn't really know what to do. So I went and did an internship. Like, I just met with him, and like, we talked, and I'm like, this is what I want. Like, I just knew at that, once I started talking, I'm like, these guys just think like I do. Like, I finally have found what I want to do. And I'm sitting there, and he's like giving ideas, like, well, you're young or whatever, like, you don't have the capital or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, so how do you think I could raise it? He's like, well, just start something little, start small. Gave me a couple ideas, like, the snow removal again, and I was like, I've already done that. I'm good. But
Mm,
and he's like, you could also like wash dogs, all these other things. I'm like, all right. My first idea, I was like, I should just make like a clothes cleaning like app type thing, like program my own app and make that and
mm,
get going there, start learning a little bit. And I'm like, I don't have a Mac. And I'm like, that's like $1,000. I'm like, well, how do I get the capital for that? Like, I almost got changed my mindset in a way like, well, how do I start a business to get what I want for this, whatever. And that's where Little Trees was born because like a year prior or whatever,
mm,
I made this decoration for my parents, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And like, they knew I wasn't like talented at art or anything, but then they're like, this is actually good. Like, thank you. Like, and they're like, this is really good. And then like other people that stop by, like, oh, who made this? Like, this is really good. Forgot about it. The whole year happens. Then Christmas season's upon us, and
mm.
like, I should I should sell these. Like, this is a great idea. And
Mm.
that's where I am now, and I'm selling them out of my room.
So now
Here I
you
am.
have and I like that kind of the evolution. Well, I could do this, but I don't have enough startup capital. So it's almost that, hey, I'm going to build a smaller business that I'm going to take the proceeds and build a bigger business and then a bigger business. But you got to start somewhere with the funds that you do have in order to build that business that you then kind of baby step it up. So you had the idea, and I'm okay. I built the mini or the little trees before it was pretty well received, and so now I'm going to take that and turn it into a business. And what's interesting is even me today, and I've done several startups. One of the ones, or a couple of them actually, have been where I did it as a side project just to do it as a gift or for someone that was a family member. And one of the ones that was one that I started was for religious items. It's called Custom LDS, customlds.com, and it really started out of I started engraving because we have some laser engravers for my own or some of my companies I run, and we wanted to give a gift for my son when he was turning 8 and he was getting baptized into the church. And so I said, wouldn't it be cool if you could do, scriptures, which is as a customary gift a lot of times that you'll give within our church. And so I said, well, scriptures are cool, but they're all pretty the same. There isn't anything really unique, and it's not as memorable. And so we went on and actually engraved, a saying for him and made it memorable and custom and unique. And then it got well enough received, and we did a couple other things like that for gifts. They're saying there's a business in here that people like the gifts and that is actually well received. Let's do a bigger business around it. And that, spurred what's one of my companies now. So I like the idea of, hey, this is well received. We, even if it starts out for a gift or a small project, we're now going to start making a business around it. So now with that as my side note, just because it was kind of similar to what I've done before. So you had the idea, let's do little trees. You start to, build them. You start to figure out what the product actually is, how you're going to make these and how you're going to sell these. Started on November 6th. So you've had about a month. Of that month, how's it gone? Have you sold any? Have you sold one? Have you sold 10? How's the selling gone? Have you got a website? Is it all friends and family, words of mouth, or how did you get that launched?
Well, I started with a website. It's thelittletrees.com. And at first, my mom will always be my first. Like, she's like, I can't give you like capital to start, but I will always be your first customer. And I'm like, thank you. Like, I owe everything to that. But uh, I started getting sales at the beginning that slowed down. That's when I was like, maybe I should try Facebook advertising. Like, I heard that does some things, and I tried that, got a little more. And it
Mm,
was mostly just family and friends. And I was like, I'm still trying to figure out how to get it more out than like I always put in the box, like, if you like your tree, then tag us on Instagram and
mm,
Twitter and all that. And like just trying to get it out, because that ultimately is what brings you in sales is the more people know you about
mm.
your company. And that's kind of where I'm at now. And yeah.
So now you're at Crossroads. So you're building the little tree, and it was littletrees.com, or what was the URL again?
Thelittletrees.com.
All right,
Yeah.
thelittletrees.com. So, you're building that out. Do you see this as a business you're going to keep building your, because I mean, it's going to be a seasonal business, right? In the sense that once Christmas is over, people aren't going to start thinking about it again till October, November of next year. So, how are you going to take the money and reinvest it in your next idea? Are you going to try and take the time and build it out further or offer additional products, or kind of what's the plan going forward after Christmas?
Well, I am gonna take some of the money and put towards my next business venture or whatever. But I'm thinking I'm gonna keep this almost more as like something that means more to me individually, just because, and it's a seasonal too,
Mm,
so like it's that time of year as well. I have been trying to expand it. Like the original idea, I wanted to do live trees, but dealing with the government's not always the
mm,
best. It took me like 6 calls to at least get an answer that I wanted. But I'm gonna hopefully and be more prepared for that the following year because I started a little late in the season for live trees. Like people were already on top of that, and I was like, I want to introduce that next year, and then keep the tinsel trees, and then maybe expand a bit, and then I mean, eventually I wouldn't mind selling it, but I don't know. It just kind of I want to do it every year, just almost to remind me where I started.
mm. No, I think that's cool, and I think that's a, I think that reinvesting part of it to build businesses that aren't so seasonal, and also looking at learning each year as you hit the seasonal, be able to kind of keep improving the product, keep growing it, and continue to have that base. I think is it makes perfect sense. Well, as we, so now you got through your journey. As we wind up, or as we wind towards the end of your journey, I always have two questions I ask at the end of the podcast. So we'll go ahead and ask those now. So within your journey, what has been the worst business decision you've ever made, and what did you learn from it?
It's gotta be back when we had Bosco, our little shed.
Mm,
So we were making pretty good money for that age of how old we were, and there's two other kids in the neighborhood down the road, and they're like, "Hey, we want in on some of this," like,
mm,
and so we were like, "Sure, we're pals or whatever." And he had a shed already, so it's not like we had to build another one or anything. We're like, all right, let's buy more stock, and we're like 2 locations, that's perfect. We're sitting there, we were just more excited that we were
mm,
expanding type of thing.
mm,
And so the deal we made with them was like, because there's 5 of us now, we're like, all the profits we make, we split between us 5. But
mm,
in all reality, it was the original one that was pulling in all the weight. Like we were pulling in all the profits. The other one was pulling just enough that they were still hanging in there.
mm,
Like why are we sharing the profits with these guys? Like we're making way more than. And I think that was our biggest mistake. And I think what I can learn from that is like, even though you're friends, like there's friends out there and you want to help them out, and you want to be in business with them.
mm,
Sometimes it's best to keep friends and family like family and friends from business separate,
mm.
just because like then there's more of an emotional time. Like we got in a fight too. It was just, I mean, we're still friends to this day. It strengthened our friendship, but
Mm.
it was
No,
like,
I think that's a good lesson to learn. Is kind of there's a difference between friends, and even as you get older, you get further in business. There, sometimes you'll hire friends or family. Sometimes it works out great, and sometimes it makes it more difficult because now you're dealing not only with an employee that you can hire, fire, and move on with, but you're also dealing with someone that you have a personal relationship or a friend relationship that adds an additional layer of complexity. So I think it's a good lesson to learn, that think about who you're bringing on as a business partner, and also how that arrangement is made as you're bringing them on, so that to make sure to avoid those pitfalls. So awesome. Second question I always ask is, so now you're talking to, and we'll change it slightly. The question is, you're talking to someone that's in high school and wants to get started with the business, a small or a little startup or a business. Let's say you're there in high school or maybe even middle school or down to 5 years old at a lemonade stand. What would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I don't know. I guess because I was thinking also I'd have to give advice for older people when they were uh when I was gonna be on this podcast. And
Sure.
I don't know, what I came up with is like, you never know when your time's up. Like, so spend every moment of your time with something you love. Just
Mm,
find what you love and do it. Like I've found so many kids that are just like, I don't like school. I'm like, dude, find something that you can do after school that you just love, even if it's a sport. Just like, because you never know. Like I could go to school tomorrow, be driving, and boom, car hits me, I'm gone. Like you never know. Like how much
hopefully
time? Even
not,
though
but
I'm
it's
a
always
young guy,
possible.
like I hope it not. Yeah, I hope not. But like it's a reality. Like we don't know how much time. Like the analogy I use is, uh, everyone has a starting balance in their bank account, and they don't know that starting balance. And every day $24 is taken out, but you don't know your starting balance. But doesn't matter how wealthy you are, how poor you are, your status and or
Mm.
whatever. Everyone's time every single day is the same. So that means you spend it how you want. Like not in the sense of part, but have your priorities straight. So then you spend it where it matters most to you. And
I like that. I think it's applicable to whether it's people, adults, kids, anybody that's getting any sort of a business. I think that spending your time wisely and appropriately, because you, just to your point, if you'd almost look at it as every day you only have so much money to spend, and so you got to spend it wisely, gives you a kind of a new context to it. Well, as people want to now check out, and you mentioned it already, but if they want to be your customer, they want to buy little trees, they want to be a salesperson for you, they're in high school and they want to reach out and pick your brain about, business idea they have, any or all the above, what's the best way to connect up with you?
the best would be I personally like text and email. I know call is the best, but I feel like I've been told I'm not that good on the phone. Like sometimes I'll call my friends and like, dude, you sound like just weird on the phone. Like in person you're different. Like in person you're way different than on the phone. I'm like, so text and email would be the best. And then if we could meet in person, I know there's restrictions. It would be best because then you actually get more of a lively person, apparently. I've been trying to work on my phone calling skills, but that works as well. And yeah, that's the best ways to reach me.
All right. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out to you, whether it's phone, text, website, or any or all of the above. Check out thelittletrees.com or make sure to support the business. And if there's anything else that we can do to support you, just let us know. Now, for all of you that are listeners, and if you have your own journey to tell, whether you're middle school, high school, or graduated, we always love to have you on as a guest. So feel free to go to the Inventive Journey guest.com, or sorry, Inventive Journey, not the Inventive Journey guest.com. Feel free to sign up and apply to be on the podcast. If you're a listener, make sure to click subscribe so you can get notifications as all the new awesome episodes come out. And last but not least, if you ever need help with patents and trademarks, feel free to reach out to us at Miller IP Law by going to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again. It's been fun to have you on. Have fun to hear a bit of your journey, and hope the rest of the Christmas season goes well for you and you're able to sell a few more little trees.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Devin.
Hey, if you enjoyed this episode of The Inventive Journey, make sure to go and check out Startups Magazine. They're an awesome magazine and podcast centered over in the UK. And if the magazine is a digital and print magazine where they focus on tech startups and entrepreneurs, and they also have a focus on female founders and women in tech. So if you want to check out their magazine, either digital or print, it's Startups Magazine, startups with an S, magazine.co.uk. And you can also look up their podcast, which is called The Serial Entrepreneur. So go check them out. They're awesome, and definitely if you like this episode, you'll like them.